What if I told you that raising smart and capable kids isn't the goal of education? When Martin Luther King Jr. was a student, long before he became a leader, he was taught by people whose character mattered more than their lessons. Let me take you back to some of those moments. He was born Michael King Jr. on January 15th, 1929, in Atlanta, Georgia, the second of three children. His father, Reverend Michael King Sr., was a man of deep conviction and public faith. In 1934, after traveling through Europe and standing in the very places where the Reformation reshaped history, he was moved by the bold faith of Martin Luther. He believed great change often begins with a new name, a new identity that signals an answer to a higher calling. So he changed his own name to Martin Luther King Sr. and gave that same name to his 5-year-old son. From that moment on, Martin Luther King Jr. carried a name that would one day be tied to reformation, courage, and the belief that you should yield to your highest calling instead of personal comfort. In the King home, faith wasn't just belief. It was a way of life. Every day began and ended with Bible reading. His grandmother told the kind of scripture stories that made you want to lean in. While still just a child, he had memorized hymns and Bible verses. His favorite hymn was, "I Want to Be More and More Like Jesus." As he got older, he sang in the choir while his mother played the piano. He enjoyed playing with his brother and sister, sliding down the banister in their 2-story home. It was a pretty nice house for the neighborhood. Martin also had models of strong character. In his shoe store one afternoon, a clerk told his father they'd have to move to the back. His father replied, "We'll either buy shoes up here or we won't buy shoes at all." And they walked out. Another time, a police officer called him boy. His father looked the man in the eye and said, "He's a boy. I'm a man. You can talk to me." From moments like these, Martin learned that walking in wisdom, strength, and love was non-negotiable because his father had stood and spoke as a protector and a provider, even in the hardest moments. And he loved reading, had a natural gift for history, debate, music. He skipped grades and seemed clearly on track for success. But to him, he was just a boy in a teacher's classroom, unaware of the life ahead. Perhaps some of his teachers saw glimmers of it, maybe even his friends. For young Martin, life felt full of music, laughter, faith, and possibility. But then he began to hear the words of the fallen world. "You're not good enough. You don't belong. You need to go away." Not from an enemy, for maybe he could have handled that, but from a friend. His white friend's parents told him he could no longer play with their son. "We are white. You are colored." His first instinct was, I was determined to hate every white person. Not long after that, he learned that wrong beliefs can be deadly, and twice they almost cost him his life. Both times, it began with nothing more than a child's misunderstanding. But those misunderstandings nearly broke him. One afternoon, playing with his brother AD, he knocked over his little sister while sliding down the banister. She went limp. Young Martin thought she was dead. In his child's mind, he was to blame, and no one would ever forgive. So he jumped from a 2nd-story window. She survived, and so did he. But that mindset lingered on. Years later, it happened again. He snuck away to watch a parade when he was supposed to be studying. And while he was gone, his grandmother, the one who told him those beautiful Bible stories, died suddenly of a heart attack. This time, he was certain God was punishing him. And again, he jumped from a second-story window because he believed he was to blame and could not bear it. As a teen, he won the state contest for a speech on racial injustice. Black America still wears chains. But on the bus ride home, a driver ordered him and his teacher to give their seats to white passengers. The driver called him a racial slur. Martin refused to move until his teacher told him that is the law. But he stood the rest of the trip. And he later wrote, "That night will never leave my memory. It was the angriest I've ever been in my life." As he grew, he began to question his very faith in God. He began to resent the emotionalism of church services and went looking for truth that could stand up to reality. By the time he was a young man, Martin Luther King Jr. had already faced loss, injustice, humiliation, and doubt. But those tests were the winds which forced his faith to grow deeper roots, to form a character that years later would fuel a dream big enough to move a nation. Years later, he would admit that little boy who vowed to hate every white person did not keep the vow. He couldn't. Not because the world got kinder, but because he got stronger. His father pulled him aside and said, "Martin, loving others is a Christian's responsibility." For a boy nursing hurt and humiliation, those words were a burden. And maybe, that's why he began to question his faith. Because if he could lay down the faith, he could lay down the standard. No calling, no responsibility, just the right to feel what he felt. But he didn't walk away, because treating others the way you want to be treated wasn't for him an act of convenience. It was a calling, one that he answered with his whole life. For later at college, he met friends and mentors who pushed him further. People like Benjamin Mays, who said, "He who starts behind in the great race of life must forever remain behind, or learn to go faster." That wasn't just a quote to Martin. It was a charge, a call to run faster, speak clear, love deeper, and learn more, even when the road is uphill. Then came Montgomery 1955 and Rosa Parks refusing to give up her seat. Martin was asked to lead. It was almost like a redemption day, a second chance on a bus. But this time he wasn't resisting for himself. He was equipped to lead lasting change. Love, not bitterness, would be his motivation. One night, after yet another death threat, he sat alone in his kitchen and prayed, "Lord, I am down here trying to do what is right in your eyes. I'm afraid. I'm at the end of my powers." And in that stillness, he felt God's presence and heard these words: "Stand up for righteousness. Stand up for truth, and I will be at your side forever." That night didn't erase the difficulty, but it erased the fear, because he knew he wasn't alone. And neither are you. The one who has called you will also equip you. What if I told you that raising smart and capable kids isn't the goal of education? Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "We must remember that intelligence is not enough, but intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education." But here's the part that most people miss. The most important character in the classroom is not the students. It's the teachers. Because if the teacher's character, mindset, and beliefs are strong, the students will rise. But if they're weak, even the smartest students can struggle. You may not be leading a bus boycott, but in your classroom, you're part of a revolution. Whether your classroom is in a school, a home, field, or anywhere in between, anywhere a student is learning is a classroom. And every time you take the time to truly hear a student's story, you're refusing to push them to the back of your priority list. Every time you choose love over resentment, you're breaking the old mindset of, I will hate them all. Every time you put in the work to become better, even when it's uncomfortable, you're standing up for the ones who need someone willing to fight for them. I know this because I was that kid. The one teachers talked about in the lounge and warned each other about before I even walked in the door. I didn't know it then, but I had a bad reputation. Not with other kids, but with the teachers. I don't know what to do with me, they would tell each other. And they were right. I was out of control. I had been raised by wolves, the TV, and myself. But one adult dared to be glad when I showed up. He didn't challenge me with shouting matches. He challenged me with high expectations and a genuine greeting every single time I walked through the door. He was happy to see me because he knew what I didn't, that I was like dry ground, just waiting for a little bit of rain, and he would be able to provide the water. That's why I know the influence you have isn't just about what you teach. It's about who you choose to be every day for yourself and for your students. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. reminds us we must remember that intelligence is not enough. Intelligence plus character, that is the goal of true education. And your students will reflect who you are, not who you wish you were, not who you are on your best day, but who you consistently choose to be in front of them day in and day out. The best way to make them better students is to become a better person yourself. Remember, those who answer the calling to be a teacher, it is no longer a choice to love one another. It's your responsibility. And as Martin Luther King Jr. said, we are now faced with the fact that tomorrow is today. This is no time for apathy or complacency. This is a time for vigorous and positive action. Don't leave here inspired only. Leave here ready. Ready to take one courageous action. Ready to start one new routine. Ready to shift your mindset. Ready to become the teacher, the leader, the person your students deserve to follow. Because the dream doesn't change the world until you start living it. Now, if this message resonates with you, join the journey. Subscribe, share this video with another parent or teacher who's leading children, and let's spread hope together. If you want to go deeper, if you need a practical system to bring this kind of order and structure into your classroom, your program, or your home, I put it all inside of my new book, Order Over Chaos, and the Order Over Chaos Masterclass. It's not just theory, it's the exact framework I've seen transform the minds of leaders and the lives of the children they lead. You can check it out through the link pinned on the first comment or in the description. Faith over worry, hope over doubt, love over fear. We do that with order over chaos. I'll see you in the next video.